We'll do it live. Click the button.
Just
Welcome to your awakening. Please take care as your reality is adjusted.
Good morning, Global Gulag. And there we go. Interesting selection of recommended videos from Google. Yeah, I've been listening to some tunes earlier as well. So there you go. That's the selection it's offering me this evening. And we'll mention a couple of other things about stuff like that to do with Google and YouTube, because I'm curious to see what people say in the chat as well, whether anybody else has noticed this effect or occurrence, event, maybe, whatever. I'll come back to that. But first of all, hello, welcome, greetings, well met, fellow hail. Welcome back once again. Another edition of Sol Excalibre on this moon day evening, just gone the 8 p.m. Somewhat is, pretty standard for me. It's not usually exactly on the dot. We're normally chatting and then it's like the last minute, it's like, oh, quick, look, it's time. I better click the button. Yeah, there we go. Right, now I can see the chat room as well. Hello to everyone in the chat room. Thanks for joining in. And yes, I suppose let's get to that point first, because we can sort of set it going. And as people turn up and comment in the chat, maybe the information will build up as we go along. I happened to notice the other day, because for years now I have been making use of the email notification function on YouTube, and I get, when I subscribe to a channel, I select the send me email notifications, select the send me notifications option. And this is going back to even before Google took over YouTube, and then subsequently they did, and then we got introduced to the bell, and you have to click the bell to get notifications and all that crap. That was them interlinking it into mobile handheld technology and the push function and whatever. But I've had email notifications for YouTube channels for years, and I've made use of that function. It's part of what helped me keep track of what content people are uploading. What are the subject matters that people are interested in? What are the current talking points? What are the ideas, concepts, solutions, hypotheses, theories, on and on and on it goes, as well as what current events are people talking about? What events are being put out there for the public to discuss? So it was a useful function for me as part of that kind of amateur analysis. Yeah, I'm not an anal cyst. I'm the anal cyst's son. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, that function was useful, especially as YouTube gradually changed over the years because of the way they were introducing layers of censorship and control and things like that. Then YouTube got bought out by Google, and on it went, this restructuring of the presentation of what used to be public created content and media that was similar to a public broadcasting system. In other words, it was open to anyone. It was YouTube. You can broadcast yourself. And that situation of how it used to be back in the day, where you get a stream, you'd sort of look at the YouTube stream of latest uploads. It used to upload live. Yeah, it used to sync live. That's how good it used to be, folks. What they've turned it into now is just tabloid dross. But it used to update live, and you could see like latest upload from so-and-so channel, and you wait a few seconds, minutes, whatever, and then the next one would update on that page, and you could see what people were uploading in a live feed kind of setup. Then they changed it, and rather than being live updated, you'd have to refresh it and it'd rebuild the page or whatever. And then they started introducing the shadow banning and cul-de-sacking and the adjustment of what was presented to you. So rather than just showing you everything that every channel you were subscribed to had just uploaded, no, instead it got curated by an algorithm which would decide whether, well, do you really need to know that this channel updated this particular video recently about this kind of, maybe you don't. Maybe we think that there's other things that you should really be putting your attention on. And that slowly increased over time until now we've got this situation where even though I'm subscribed to around 600 channels, a large proportion of which, certainly a large majority of which are all independent people. They're not mainstream news channels. They're not internet media news channels or alternate news channels or whatever. They're just a lot of people in general, independent people who are making use of that function of how YouTube originally started, of you can create your own content, you can publish yourself. But I don't see uploads from those people anymore. Now it's progressed to the point where 99% of what's presented to me on that YouTube stream page is all the mainstream channels that I've been subscribed to. Yeah, for however long, some of them for a long time, like the BBC channels, the CNN, the Fox News, the Euro News, the NTV or NDTV, the China News. You know, I'm subscribed to quite a few news and news outlet channels. That's deliberately. So I've got a good sort of balanced outlook of what the media is pumping out there, while at the same time I was getting to hear what people in general were thinking about these things that were being presented to them. That was part of how I would watch the propaganda narratives and script writing occur in real time almost, you know, the way they would put stuff into the media and you'd see it echo across all the different media streams. And then over the years, people got to the stage of taking those video clips and demonstrating clearly to people by putting them in a mosaic on a single page. It's like, look, here's like 20 mainstream cable news channels all literally repeating the same script. Do you get it now? This is how much your media is influenced, and it's all about influence games. Yeah. So anyway, to get to the point and the question, I've been making use of that email notification system as part of the way I approach doing what I'm doing. It was a useful function, and it helped me look at those kind of patterns and media output. Last week, August the 13th, and I've asked some of the other guys, not everyone uses the email notification, but for those that do, they've said they've seen the same thing. From August the 13th last week, all video upload content notifications from YouTube have stopped. I've still received email notifications for comments that have been posted under my videos. Even those, I'm a bit dubious about the timing of them, whether they've been delayed from when the comment was posted. So, you know, there seemed to have been a certain lag. Somebody posted something, but I don't get the notification until hours later. You know, things like that. But it's difficult to be certain because it doesn't give you a precise time on the comments on the video page. But as for all video upload content, that all stopped on August the 13th. Late night, August the 13th, I think. So since then, I haven't received any video upload notification emails. And I'm being specific about the emails. If I go to the bell function on YouTube, then yes, they will show up on there. I can set it to show the upload notifications on there. But I'm curious as to why YouTube has just stopped all of the email notifications. Has anybody had a similar effect? Are you seeing the same thing? Have you seen any information from Google or YouTube or whatever saying that they're, you know, like they sometimes do, they're doing updates, they're doing adjustments to the way it works or whatever? But it's led me to consider the possibilities, and I think the percentage chance of these possibilities are rising rapidly. that some of the reasoning for them shutting down video content is to curtail the movement of information. Simple as that. I know it sounds a cliche these days, to talk about that kind of thing happening, but that could be a strong possibility of why they did it. Why does it seem to have stopped all at roughly the same time? Because it does seem to have stopped for a few people.
Screen share.
Is this an update from YouTube? Will stop sending email notifications to alert channel subscribers to new content. Bang on, thank you. On August the 10th. And they stopped as of August the 13th. There you go. That's certainly an element of the question answered. And I'm saying it that way, as in an element of the question answered, because what are their reasons for doing it? Have they given any reasons for doing it? You'll still get notified mobile by, that's the push function, like the bell notification. That's that integration of old style computer tech and the modern mobile tech. But are they giving any explanation or justification as to why they're doing it? No?
They're saying it's because 0.1% is opened, so it's lack of people opening the email has decided them to stop doing it. Basically. Yeah.
And that leaves a really big open question for people that may be not so apparent immediately. How do they know only 0.1% of people open those emails? That means there's a tracking cookie built into the email that lets them know that you've opened it. Yeah. And I have to admit that to a certain degree, I'm part of that percentage that doesn't open every notification, because that's part of the way I use that functionality. I would have it set on subscriptions or channels I'm subscribed to send me a notification, but I wouldn't always open the notification and look at it, because the main information I wanted was who's uploading, what's the content about, and the date and time that it's being put up, obviously, because that's looking for those data points of patterns of certain subjects being pushed through certain media outlets. So out of an average of, I mean, back in the day, I used to get 100 plus emails a day from content being uploaded. More recently, that has gone down to about 50 plus, because some of the channels have been shut down and the adjustments that they've been doing, like the shadow banning and cul-de-sacking and crap like that, has reduced it down to about 50 plus a day that I would get. So I would scan through those and look for, some of the channels I'd purposely want to actually see their content. So I would open them and look at them and watch it and whatever. But a lot of them, probably 60 to 70% of them, I wouldn't open, because, as I say, all I was looking for was the data points of what is the subject about, which channel is it that's putting it out. Most of the time you can tell that just from the content of the title of the video content. But yeah, thank you for finding that, Gary, because that certainly answers that main point about, did it happen to everyone? Yeah, it seems it has. So why are they shutting it off at this time? And part of what I was thinking about over the weekend is what else has been going on this week that they would want to take this next step of curtailing the movement of information. What difference does it make to them whether you open the email notification or not? They offered that functionality. Some of us made use of that functionality. We made use of that offer, that functionality being offered. So why now, at the moment, with everything that's going on, have they decided that that functionality doesn't suit the purpose that people want anymore? Are they making some kind of implied demand that you have to open up the letter and look at it to make the functionality valid? I didn't say I want you to send me an email so that I can guaranteed open it and look at it. I just said, yeah, send me an email. What I do with the receipt of that is up to me, isn't it? This may sound like a personally pedantic argument about the functions that a privately owned platform is offering. Leave the question aside of whether it's a platform or a publisher, because that's part of the manipulation at the moment. There's a petition to try and get it turned back on. Cool. You see, there you go. It's not about them thinking that they need to change their setup because, oh, well, only 1%, 0.1% of people actually open them. So why should we bother? So because people asked for it and you provided it and people said, yes, please, we'll have that. Whether they open it or not is nothing to do with you. But it perfectly suits a situation where they want to curtail the movement of information, because the bell notification and the push notification system enables more nodes of interruption and interference. An email was just here's the latest video that somebody's uploaded, that's been presented to you. But the social media interlaced notification system is something quite different. That is part of that feedback psychological loop of getting people to connect to that little ding, 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 you've got mail, the way it used to be with AOL years ago. That's probably how they got us all hooked on email. Ding, ding, you've got mail. So, things I was considering and wondering about. Did you enjoy the JJ Day? This week here in the UK, we were celebrating the JJ Day. I'm calling it that deliberately. I'm not being disparaging on all those people that went over there and put themselves in danger or died being involved in that warfare. But when you look at the larger picture of why were they there in the first place and what were they doing and what were they perpetuating, no, I'll call it the JJ Day. It's the day that they turned everybody into pussies. Because Franklin knew about Japan before they initiated the attack, and Pearl Harbor and all that narrative, all that script starts to fall apart. But here in the UK, in the media, they wanted to remind you, they wanted you to know about VJ Day, as they properly call it, Victory in Japan Day. But the way it's written, when you see it's VJ Day, VJJ Day. Yeah, it's all celebrate our VJJs in this new Mangina universe that they're creating. But it made me think, it reminded me about the war propaganda element, and a lot of what we're witnessing and being subjected to via the media at the moment is war propaganda of one form or another. Some of it may be more finessed and nuanced in this age. It's not as simplistic as the kind of war propaganda that they show us from the Second World War and the First World War, the kind of simplified, cartoonish war propaganda that's put in front of people. But in many ways, it is still simplistic and cartoonified in this day and age, for some of it anyway. Yeah, like a lot of the meme war culture. But it reminded me about that war propaganda element. Here we are in the UK being reminded again. Ding, there's the bell again. See, another upload of remember the war, remember the Blitz spirit, remember what it was like being in warfare. Do you remember to celebrate the people that gave their lives to protect the freedom that you have? Don't forget, we're at war with an invisible enemy. Reminder, remember the Second World War, for JJ Day. Yeah. Put your mind back in that war frame again. What else is going on that connects to that war element at the moment? Obviously there's a lot of conflicts around the world that are going and escalating. But with other things, other occurrences that I've seen in the media and in the global events kind of stuff over the last week, it inclined me to other connections. And this is why this week, finally get to the point of this week, in the subtitle kind of thing, it says, time to Putin the vaccine. I was going to say Phoenix then. That's a Freudian connection, synchronistically connected there. Yeah, time to Putin the vaccine. Did you notice, it was mentioned a little bit in the media, but did you notice not so long ago, several days ago, Putin announced that they have a vaccine, and he's even given it to one of his own daughters, just to prove how great it is for the more mature amongst us. You might remember the CJD crisis, the mad cow crisis, where the politician was feeding his children hamburgers to prove that the beef was still safe. So, get out there and eat your CJD beef. We'll all end up with mad cow disease. And now Putin is saying, look, I'll even inject my own daughter with this vaccine to prove it's safe. Isn't it convenient timing that Putin is announcing that they have a vaccine? If Russia has a vaccine now, that would mean that they don't need to worry about locking down their country anymore. They don't need to restrict their economy and their industries. They can, start getting back to business. So they're ahead of all the other power players around the world. They're in there first, ready to go. Putin just happens to have the magic pill ready to be used to allow his country to steam ahead in the races. Isn't that convenient timing? At the same time, the protests, mention the protests now around the world, and some of these protests are for different things. So I'm not trying to co-opt all subject matters under one banner. For example, in Israel, they're protesting against Netanyahu because he is a criminal. He's now been convicted. He is a criminal. But yet, at the same time, he's back in power in politics over there. So a lot of people have been protesting for a while now about that. But it's another element of people, the public, out protesting in the streets. And then, of course, that brings us up to other more relevant information at the moment, or situation at the moment, certainly for us here in the UK, with the crown virus still at large and on the wanted list and lurking around like the phantom creeping death, coming to try and get your firstborn son. RT uploading videos. See, this is part of why I don't like the notification system and why I preferred the emails, because even though I know you can turn off the sound notification, it's just the fact that you end up with a pop-up of some kind saying, hey, look, somebody have just uploaded something. That's that dopamine hook connection, keep you addicted to the constant stream of, notification, validation. Anyway, digressing myself, get back to my notes. Yeah. Other protests around the world, including protests against the masks and the lockdowns and the anti-bullshit protests, basically. And in some places, that protesting has become quite extreme, like in Ukraine. Just try and sort my screen out, do screen share. Like in the, as I was saying, in the Ukraine and in Belarus, where the protests have actually been fatal for some people, many people injured, some people killed, and the dictatorial crackdown. And I'm not trying to defend Lukashenko or be against him or whatever. I don't know enough about their situation to say one way or the other, really. I don't feel I do anyway, but just the extent of the protests reminded me of the Ukraine. And now I can't remember the name of the main sort of conflict that took place, the Donbass square with the snipers and all that craziness that happened at the time in the Ukraine. And please remember, the Ukraine is a satellite nation of Russia. So for the NATO, Western, Anglo-American, old money alliances, it's one of those nations that needs to be destabilized so that they can turn it into a no man's land if they want to start a conflict directly with Russia. Belarus, the same. So are they going through a process of attempting to destabilize Belarus by causing these protests and painting Lukashenko as anti-masker, vaccine denialist, and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, fits the MO of the kind of engineered colour revolutions that they've played out multiple times now over the last couple of decades, at least, that I'm aware of. Yeah, this is going back to the original colour revolutions and the Arab Spring and all that. But over in the USA, the media wants to concentrate on I put the screen share up, on the extremes of the polarizations of protests. This was on ODN, which used to be ITN News, another news channel. I'll just pause it at this point. I'm not going to play it because it's just a quick riot porn clip. And it's just mainly the fact that it's showing the police in their gear with their gas masks on. They're protected from the deadly crown virus. But it was just the way ODN had decided to put this on the strap line. Male-only Proud Boys have been described as extremists and a hate group. And this is so feeding different elements of the narrative. One, male-only. In other words, they're misogynists, so they must be bad people. Proud Boys. I talked about this ages ago when they first started. It's like, why do you want to call yourself Proud Boys? It's just, it's icky. To me, maybe. It's just my personal opinion. It's just like, that's not a good label. But then described as extremist and a hate group. And this connects to things like the Southern Poverty Law Centre, which is notorious for putting out lists of people that are hate groups or whatever. They call them extremists, and they get labelled and attacked by a large portion of the media, which is deliberately there to sow and feed those narratives and to keep that script going. And this is exactly why I wanted to show this, the image of the stormtrooper police that had to get involved because of a protest between Antifa and the Proud Boys descended into physical violence. So they got to send in the stormtroopers, the Empire, like the Darth Vader said at one point, the Emperor does not share your optimism. If you were considering, could this turn out good? Could the two sides, meet in the middle and have a conversation and shake hands maybe? And no, the Emperor does not share your optimism, because both sides have been deliberately set up, engineered, potentially enabled, certainly nudged and persuaded to go to extremes and get physical with each other. So the cameras can come along and film it all and go, hey, look, everybody, look at the two extreme crazy people fighting in the streets and causing your civilization to fall apart. But only if you joined our ideology would everything be great again. If you jump in our lifeboat, we can save the world for you. Just follow along with what we're suggesting to you. Get the vaccine, get the mask, stand in line, get your chip. And if you don't want it under your skin, you can have it as a tattoo or as a wearable, or you can just carry your phone with you because your phone is your chip. It doesn't need to be under your skin. You're carrying it with you 24/7. It's got the entirety of your life in it. It is your chip. But the main thing I wanted to point out was just demonstration of how some of the media likes to tell you about these kind of protests. But at the same time, there's a lot of other protests going on. Let's switch to that one. This is a protest in Manchester. And this is on RT UK. This actually was put up today, but I thought it was appropriate to grab this one. There's not many people there at that protest. Piers Corbyn was there. He's been doing the rounds, going up and down the country, joining in with these protests. There wasn't exactly a lot of people there. But it shows a massive difference between some people who want to come out and just talk about and, maybe raise some awareness about certain subjects. And they're not planning to be violent with each other. They're not telling everybody else around them what to do. They're not trying to force an action onto other people. So it is possible that we can have that kind of protest interaction without it being stormtroopers versus crazy people who determined to destroy everything or to rob everything and claim it as reparations or some other intersectionally manipulated bullshit. Like, that store doesn't sell enough tranny clothing, so I'm going to burn it down because I'm on the side of the trannies. It doesn't make any real good sense. It's just all emotional manipulation, which is classic Bernays propaganda. That's the main thing that Bernays helped the marketing world figure out, was manipulate people via their emotions, get an emotional hook in them, and then you can drag them to extremes. And as Voltaire pointed out, they can make you believe absurdities, and because they can make you believe absurdities, you will carry out atrocities. Because those atrocities to you will seem like perfectly normal things because you've been persuaded that normal, absurd things are now normal. That is the new abnormal. I've mentioned that many times recently. Manipulation of the phrase the new normal, and the way they've used that to nudge people into accepting abnormal conditions. I'll put this kind of caveat in here. If you look back at the content on my channel, it's quite easy to see that I've been speaking out against normal society all along. So me talking now about the new abnormal to do with the corona bullshit agenda and whatever may seem a juxtaposition to some of that, but it's not at all. I've been trying to explain this point to people all along, right from the beginning. Your perception of what the real world is, of reality, of what is presented to you by the media, what is given to you in the educational system as history and scientific facts and all this kind of thing, is filled with pollution. It is filled with manipulation. It's not just the winners that write history, it's the winners that write the day-to-day media that you're presented with, because they're controlling that narrative or certainly manipulating it to a large degree. So whenever people talked about normal society, I felt the compunction to say, hang on, what are you calling normal? What you call normal, mate, is not normal at all. Not in the way you intend it. You mean normal as in it's good and healthy for people and everybody's having a great life and getting along and, you're all getting the best out of life and enjoying yourself and having a healthy lifestyle and all that good stuff. That's what you mean by normal, really, isn't it? It's like that desire that you have, like the white picket fence American dream cliche, or the retirement cottage in the Cotswolds in the UK. That's the kind of dream, perfect, sedate life that you're calling or desiring as normal. But the reality that you live is not normal in that fashion at all. The reality we have been living for a long time now, very long time, is a manipulation of perception to make you believe that things that are truly abnormal are accepted as normal. To the reality that large power bases based in wealth and property have manipulated societies en masse to go to war with each other and slaughter each other, claim each other's resources, fight over the 12th biscuit after they've already taken the other 11, and then tell you that you were doing it because you're the good guys. Those people over there were crazy, naughty people who believed in really silly stuff, so we had to go over there and sort them out. And while we were there, we took all their stuff. So what you considered normal all along has not been what you actually, I feel anyway. I'm projecting a little bit, but I've found this to be a truism with most people. What you consider to be normal, what you would desire to be normal reality. Not all the bad, nasty, icky shit that you maybe started finding out about recently, because a lot of what's been happening in the real world recently has been knocking on your proverbial denial barrier that you'd built in your brain based on the perception that they'd given you. So now you're starting to try and build a ladder so you can see over the top of that wall and go, hang on a minute, this isn't what they told me it was. This is what the sort of backstage of the circus looks like. Now you start to look back at your own life and think, well, hang on, all that stuff that I used to think was normal, that I was indoctrinated to believe was normal, was just like a facade to hide a more unpleasant reality, because they knew that if you started to realize that unpleasant reality, you would be more likely to rebel against it. And that brings us up to date with why are there lots of protests going on around the world. Some of the stuff I'm saying might sound a bit dark and doom and, all that kind of doom and gloom shit. Oh, fear porn, everybody run away. You don't want to deal with your fear, you just want to run away from it. Fear the fear itself, which has been something I've talked about quite a few times in the past and tried to explain that point of view. But just to run through some quick screen shares, just to sort of add into the context of some of the stuff I'm talking about. This is another, thanks to Taz for sharing this link with me, and I think others had been sharing it as well. This is to add into some more of the recent narrative that the BBC have been pushing about what life is going to be like in the new normal. There was one they put up several days ago, maybe a couple of weeks ago. I'm not exactly sure when it first come up on the site, but quite a few people covered it, where it was talking about this woman who were going her journey to work and how she interacted with her workplace, and the fact that she was on a contactless pathway, and how her technology would interact with the technology around her in the building and would allow her access to her workplace and blah, 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 blah. Now, the BBC doing it again, talking about travel. How will travel be possible in this new normal, in this new world order of the crown virus, the deadly phantom creeping death that's coming for your firstborn son? If you don't know that reference, go and have a listen to Metallica, Creeping Death. You get what I mean, and why it all relates back to ancient Egypt yet again, and the pharaonic manipulation. Anyway, sorry, digressing myself. Have BBC photoshopped this to paint that mask on the guy's face? It's not so easy to tell. But anyway, yeah, this article talking about what you'll end up having to do for being allowed to travel. And it does basically resort down to an extreme surveillance society environment. You'll have your breath checked. You'll certainly have your temperature checked. You'll be face scanned. You'll be biometrically scanned. You'll more than likely be required to carry some form of electronic biometric ID to show that you've had the vaccine or that you've been checked and cleared by the system. It's like your little electronic passport. Remember, going back maybe a few years and talking about bringing in a new digital passport so that people could just whiz through the airports and get in easier. And they're even talking about, hey, look, you can buy these devices that kill bacteria on your earbuds. It uses UV light. They've had this technology for a very long time, yet they've only just started introducing it to the public in a way where it can be nicely controlled and monopolized and reinforce the various propaganda narratives. Don't worry about all the bacteria on the surfaces everywhere else. No, just worry about the ones that you're stuffing in your ear roll, the ones that are the Bluetooth enabled, that is irradiating your brain and can influence your thinking. Please go and check out Please Stop the Ride channel. And Camille, who runs that channel, and doing live chats with Jeff C. And they've covered a lot of this technology and how it can literally influence your thinking through the use of the waves and the sonic sub-audio influences that can be output by these devices. You're talking like ultra low frequency, but they can influence your thinking with those things. Yeah. Anyway, digressing again. Another one, and this is where it sort of comes into a main point again for me. So I did mention about, sort of what war conflict is happening or potentially going to happen soon possibly in Belarus, it could descend into another destabilization effect. But there's also other media stories at the moment that are being damage controlled. They're trying to reduce the attention, and they will eventually drop out of the general conversation if people don't keep bringing up the subject, basically. And if you're not aware by now, the majority of the journalists out there, I'm saying the majority because it's usually the 99.9% that work in mainstream media, but there are still a few that are trying to do a genuine job, and there are some that are working independently to try and do real journalism. But remember all the debacle about the numbers being wrong and them subtracting 10% or 5,000 off the death count? And then lo and behold, only a few days later, Health Secretary Handycock decides to announce that, we're going to scrap Public Health England because they weren't very good at doing the tests and, finding out the data for us so we could base our numbers on that data. This is called burning the evidence. This is the equivalent of when that Chinese embassy was spotted burning loads of papers in their courtyard because the Americans were coming to shut them down. It's like, quick, get rid of all the evidence. And if you've seen other similar effects like Enron, I mean, and when they were burning documents and shredding documents, it's that kind of get rid of the evidence. Now, conveniently, PHE, Public Health England, will be scrapped, and it's going to be replaced with a different group. I can't remember the name they gave it, but it's going to be replaced basically with another group that will carry on doing the same thing. But now, you can forget about the PHE connection because they're going to, put that into the memory hole. Oh, they got it wrong. They weren't good enough. They didn't do what we wanted them to. So goodbye to them. With everything else going on at the moment, but worry about, protests and journalists being arrested because they've made documentaries that are naughty, supposedly. And then finally, this sort of just adds into some of the stuff I mentioned in recent weeks about how if the social distancing and mask wearing and all this stuff, the, obsessive hand washing was meant to address the COVID, the corona crown virus bullshit, then why are the flus still, why is the flu still there and the influenza and the tuberculosis, and why weren't they just like, gone because of all this extra effort we're doing to deal with all these, this nasty virus effect? Because the flu, the cold is a coronavirus, same family tree as the SARS-CoV-2. So if the flu's carrying on and we're doing all this like restriction stuff, but it doesn't seem to be making fuck all to the numbers. Of course, obviously that's dealing with the numbers that they are presenting. I was curious as well, if you add the alleged number of deaths from COVID-19 to the number of deaths from influenza, does it then work out, would the total amount approximate to the deaths that we usually get per year from influenza? That's something maybe to look at, but it's just one of those things that crossed my mind. But to get back to the point of the protest element and whether there could be a connection to some of the other things going on around the world, such as the protests in Belarus and other situations like Israel, and I think in Thailand as well, they've been having some protests against their government there. I don't know if that's anything to do with the masks and stuff like that. I don't think it is. I think it's other corruption stuff. But there's protests going on all over the place. And at the same time, there's a lot more information coming forward, and there's a lot more information that is standing its ground because it can be shown again and again and again. It is repeatable, such as scientific evidence that masks do not stop viruses. Yeah, I know for a lot of people that they don't want to get into the argument about whether viruses even exist at all. Are they transmissible? All that kind of stuff. But if you leave that aside, if you don't want to get into that kind of long-winded debate about germ theory versus terrain theory and stuff like that, but just the fact that it can be shown that a mask, and especially the kind of surgical masks that most people are wearing, or the cloth masks that go under the chin, the homemade masks, will do nothing to prevent the spread of this virus. There's plenty of evidence out there to show it, but the government is continuing that lie. Oh, you gotta wear face masks. That's the guidelines. That's the rules. And I had to post a comment under one of Anna Breeze's recent videos because I felt like now you're starting to demonstrate that you are just being the same as the mainstream media. You're milking people's emotions and getting them to talk about, oh, how terrible it was that I had COVID months ago and I'm still suffering from it now. Shall we do the Elisa Milano video? I'll start brushing my hair. Show you all the hair I got off. This is just 2 days. Yeah, Elisa Milano, 2 days worth of me brushing my hair. Yeah, can you see that? Yeah. I don't know if you can see that because I ain't cleaned this out since Saturday. So this is like Sunday and today of me brushing my hair. There you go. There's like twice as much probably that Alyssa Milano had, and she claims it was from COVID. I ain't got COVID, and I've been brushing my hair every day. I've had long hair for 30 plus years. I lose on average about that much hair every day, but it grows back again. Yeah, it's a funny thing about hair, just keeps growing if you don't fuck around with it. If you look after it and don't chop it off all the time and whatever. Anyway, sorry, I'm digressing myself a lot tonight to get back to the point about the protests. There's a lot more information coming out now, not just to do with the masks, but other things as well, because this situation around the crown virus, the coronavirus, the top of the skull controlling your thinking virus, is revealing a lot more other things for people. It is demonstrating the levels of tyrannical dictatorial control that the system will resort to manipulate people en masse. So it's led to a situation where more people are questioning what's going on here. This doesn't make any sense to me. I want to find out more. And in that process, they begin their process of questioning. They begin knocking on that ice wall of denial. They begin building a ladder so they can look over the top of it and go, hang on. For most of my life, I've gone along with this idea of, well, they're not trying to get us. They're not out to get us. That's silly. They're our servants. They're our government. They're our politicians. They're working for us. So it must just be these crazy conspiracy theories that talk about this weird shit. I don't. Now they're starting to go, hang on. Yeah, I'm starting to see things. I'm starting to experience things that are making me go, oh, maybe there's something to what they said all along. I need to ask, I need to look. And there is a little bit of vulturism in the sense of that kind of voyeuristic effect of, for some people now, they're like, well, maybe there is something to it. So I better look, and I better look to see just how bad it possibly could be. So then they get introduced to the worst of the Petergeddon stuff. And lo and behold, recently, what have we had a resurgence of and a perpetuation of is all that terrible child trafficking narrative, etc., etc. And please, caveat myself, I'm not saying there's nothing to it. I'm just talking about how it is utilized in the media to manipulate people's perception via their emotions. A lot of that information is really knocking on the door now, and the system knows this. And I know they're partly, as they do, they've game theoried and war gamed all of this kind of stuff to the nth degree. They're using algorithms and AI tech and whatever to pass through all this stuff. But they know that a lot more of the public will get a bit uppity and start asking questions. So they are actively creating situations to deal with that, to either isolate it and control it, or to steam valve it and vent that pressure off and give people an outlet to release their angst as they put their head down and go along with the narrative. Because it's one thing to just go, oh, tut and sigh, and then put your face mask on when you go in the shop. You know, I'm not casting aspersions on anybody that is, doing what they feel they have to do to be able to get along. If you got to go and buy food and the shop refuses to let you in unless you wear a face mask, then what do? I get that. I'm not trying to suggest that people don't do what they need to do. But the more that the general populace acquiesce to it, even if they feel that their angst has been released because they've been allowed to question it, or they've been allowed to shake a fist and go, oh, I don't like this, I don't like change, I'm old and I don't like change, but, oh, everything's changed. Oh, well, okay. That is, yet again, emotional manipulation to stretch out, flatten the curve of the uprising. They talked about flattening the curve of the viral outbreak, but a lot of what's going on at the moment, certainly in the media and the way the media is being used, is about flattening the curve of the uprising. They're trying to pull that peak down so that it's not so sharp. Or they're trying to compress it so it gets sharper, like the BLM, Antifa, Proud Boy stuff that's done in America. They've tried to franchise that out over here as well, but it doesn't seem to have taken off as much here. We'll see as the year goes on. So the one way I thought of describing this was overtopping the dam. The media is used as the dam. It is the prism that manipulates the light of the information and turns it a certain, or can. They have the ability to twist it to a certain color to affect people's thinking, those that are presented with that media output. So think of it as like the dam. And at the moment, with everything that's going on, people's desire to ask questions and to find out what's going on and, maybe to choose a different direction, that is all starting to overtop that dam. More and more, day by day, it's getting more and more confirmation of the conspiracies. And I know for many people, they're stuck in a bias and they're stuck defending their paradigm. They don't want to acknowledge or accept, and I'm not saying they have to accept, but they don't want to even acknowledge and look at to validate for themselves, to begin their own process of gaining information and possibly, finding out from their own point of view, their own truths about what is going on. They just build a denial wall and say, no, it's just conspiracy. And as we know, after however many decades after the CIA first introduced that phrase, it has become now ingrained after nearly 2 generations of people utilizing that phrase as a pejorative. The system is doing it at the moment. Bojo said this not so long ago, those crazy conspiracy theorists kind of thing. But more and more, day by day, large elements of what used to be labeled conspiracy theory is being revealed as conspiracy reality. I watched approximately half of the Shadowgate documentary that came up recently, and there's all that debacle about the reporter, journalist Millie Weaver. I couldn't remember the name from it, being arrested and all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of that just makes me inclined to say that's promotional manipulation, and this is a Trump support campaign. Basically, it's a Trump support psyop. But I'd recommend people watch the video because it clearly and very succinctly and very well demonstrates how ingrained and intertwined the surveillance state technology already is. Not, in the future they're going to have this tech that's going to enable them to do this, that, and the other, and they'll be able to control your movement, and they'll build these electronic devices at all the airports. No, it's already there now. It has been for several years, probably nearly 2 decades. This stuff has been there already. And one thing they cover really well in that documentary is demonstrating how that is so intertwined and how it can be so influential on the public en masse. So when you start to wonder, well, why are they telling us these stories about, I had COVID months ago and I'm still suffering from it now? reinforcing narratives to influence the public mood and thinking and direction. This is the emotional manipulation that Bernays defined so well. Yeah, but a lot of it is overtopping the dam now. So we are currently, the way I put it in my notes is, you can think of the censorship effect or the media information influence effect, like that prison wall. It's not just a wall, it's a box. Yeah, it's 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional really, but that's a pedantic point. Yeah, you're in a 3-dimensional box of manipulated perception if you rely solely on the media output that you're surrounded by. Yeah, and it's not just in the media per se, it's in the society. It's built into the indoctrination that we all do to each other and our parents do to us and society in general does to every generation. But that 3-dimensional box, a while ago was talking about the concept of the fourth wall, and Steve Tagoose on his mystery show sort of presented this kind of concept quite well in the way when people talk about breaking the fourth wall, it was like an actor's way or a scriptwriter's way of saying they were trying to bring the audience in to the play and get them to feel involved, like they were part of the story that was being presented on the stage. So it's that breaking the fourth wall meme or concept. But when you're talking about a box isn't just 4 walls, it's 6. So what we're experiencing at the moment is that breaking of the 6th wall. Yeah, I know it's a lot of cliches, but you open the lid of that box, you're going to get a much better view. You build a ladder so you can look over the top of that box. When the lid is shut, you're in darkness. The only thing you can see is what's brought to you inside the box, what is given to you, what is presented to you on the inside of that box. For those that have seen it, think of that Black Mirror episode when he's in the cubicle with all the screens presenting different images to him constantly. You are in that cardboard box floating along in this reality. If you flip the lid of that box, you can have a look over the edge and start looking around yourself and find out that it's not all vacuum. There's a lot of stuff going on out there, and a lot of it is useful to you, beneficial to you. And that's where in my notes I'd put here about getting into kind of like the question of spiritual warfare, psychological warfare. Obviously, I've mentioned psyops. But to make the main point that I wanted to get to tonight, after, is it time? Is it now the time when they are Putin in the vaccine? Because it's convenient to initiate the next stage. We're just approaching the elections for Trump and Biden in America, so the chaos creation is going to amplify so that the candidates can step forward and say, I'm the man for your security. I'll bring in the police. I'll sort out the crime rate. I'll deal with these international problems. Classic electioneering. And at the same time, as I say, Putin steps forward and goes, well, we're going to be all right because we got the vaccine. We're ahead of all you lot. Yeah, we're going to be cool, mate. We're going to be building our tanks while you're still shuffling around fighting over masks. But I've mentioned in recent weeks the concept of carnivorous memes and the manipulation of people's thinking through media primarily, but also, as I say, social institutions like the education and academia and whatever. But we are experiencing a similar concept to the arguments over the virus itself. Again, I'm self-referencing a lot, sorry, but ages ago I called this out as the crown virus because it's about controlling people's thinking. It's about controlling their crown chakra so that you dominate their thinking and stop them progressing any further in their own development. But that is similar to the argument about germ theory versus terrain theory. Is the problem in your head? Is it a germ that's in your head, or is that germ just a meme that's been given to you? So it's like a phantom of a bacteria or germ. It's not actually an existent thing. It's just a concept in a metaphysical sense. in a non-physical sense. But the terrain you're experiencing is a terrain that's filled with media that are telling you it's going to be this, it's going to be this, like that BBC article I showed you. What is travel going to be like in the near future so that we can deal with the crown virus? What's happening about people protesting against the government? Oh, they're all getting beaten down by the police because now you live in a police state. Didn't you know? It's normal. It's the new normal. It is. It's a new normal, promise. Breaking that sixth wall. We naturally do that. We organically do that constantly. Every day we have done for time immemorial, which is why we're still here and can still have conversations or listen to me preaching monologue in the way that we can, because they cannot truly stem it completely. They're trying to build a dam or build a box, but their construction techniques are never really perfect. Whenever they try to fully restrict somebody, they tend to break them. So you end up with broken people. They're not really a being anymore. They're a programmable automaton that has glitches. They have mental viruses. But they play a constant game of patching up the holes that we create when the seeds of people's desire to know more start sprouting. Yeah, so at the moment, they're pushing and pushing and pushing. They're giving us all these confirmations to a lot of the conspiracies that have been around for a long time, and they're demonstrably doing those things to the societies that we live in. So it's all fertilizer. This is all like confirmation. This is all pushing more and more up the top of that dam, overtopping that dam. Every time they do more of this shit, that's another rung in somebody's ladder to go, oh, this ice wall is shrinking, it's melting, what's going on? I used to believe the world was this way, but they keep showing us this stuff, and it's like, and then I go around the corner to the shops, and the people there have all got masks on, and they all look a bit terrified, and they're all worried about touching each other. Oh. More and more, they're led to start asking questions, or they shut down or break. This again is classic connection to the kind of MK Ultra manipulation of people. When you try and manipulate people too much like that, they have a unfortunate probability of breaking. So we're seeing a lot more broken people. There's a lot more people having freakouts and having breakdowns, basically, or worse, they're taking their own lives because they can't deal with it anymore for one reason or another, whatever their reasons are. So don't think, as they push towards the second wave, which they will start accelerating now as we're getting towards September, they've already started building up, talking about the case numbers again and whatever. And they will push this second wave concept. But the more they do, the more fertilizer that is for everyone else that's starting to ask those questions. I'm not trying to suggest that all the conspiracy theories you've ever heard are all suddenly true. They're not at all. That in and of itself is a fallacy, straw man to try and debunk what I'm saying. But when you start scratching away at this facade of normal society, you'll find that most of this stuff has been there for a very long time. And it's been building up and building up. And eventually it has to reach a crescendo. The balance has to swing back again. The pendulum has to swing back. That is the natural law of things, equal and opposite reaction. The more they push, the more people will wake up, as the cliche goes. Yeah, so when you feel that you're stuck in that box again, just remember that we've all got the ability to break that sixth wall and start having a look round to see what else is going on. Yeah. One other way I thought of describing it as well, because there's often a lot of this concept resolves to the discussion of fear versus love. You know, and I know for a lot of people, the way I talk about things, the way I present things, I know for some people it may come across as being somewhat doom or gloom or dark. because I will confront directly some of the stuff that for a lot of people they don't want to look at because it's just too unpleasant. They'd rather not talk about those subjects, thank you, because they want to concentrate on all the loveliness in the world. Yeah. But I feel you cannot deal with something until you've actually addressed it. If you just deny it, it's never going to get fixed. It just gets worse. That doesn't mean you have to revel in it. That doesn't mean you have to be obsessed with it. It doesn't mean you have to be dragged down by it. But if you just try and ignore that darkness, it will bite you in the ass. You will be ass-immolated. And one of the ways I thought of trying to describe the process that we're going through at the moment is getting beyond the bargaining with the beast. In the grieving process that I've referred to before, that's a lot of the psychological and spiritual process that people are going through when this kind of world changing stuff is happening. You get to a point of bargaining. You try to bargain with the authorities that told you your relative has recently died, or your paradigm is dead, your old world is dead and over. So you start trying to bargain with that authority figure. So for a lot of people, they're like, well, I'm going to wear the mask just to go along and get along. In effect, they are bargaining with the system. They're saying, well, the system's demanding I do this and I don't really agree with it, but everybody else is doing it and I don't want to feel embarrassed and I don't want to scare people and I don't want to stand out from the crowd and I don't want to be pointed at and isolated and ostracized and called a conspiracy theorist, so I'll wear a mask. And it begins with those steps, those incremental steps of, oh, I'll just do this. Oh, I'll just go along with this. I'll just go along with it. That's bargaining with the beast, bargaining with the abuser that is manipulating you. How do you get beyond that? It takes courage to go from being controlled by fear to being able to realize and see the love that is actually the counter to fear. Because, you know, as we talked about many times on these shows, you know, what is the opposite of fear? The system loves to use fear to manipulate and control people. So what is the counter to that? What is the opposition to fear? And it's love. Yeah, for many people, they think it's a bit of a cliche, but that's what it is. So how do you get from one to the other? And as I've been arguing for a long time now, it's about having courage. You can't just deny your fear, because fear is a useful tool for you and it never truly is gone from reality. Reality contains dangerous things. So just cutting off fear and denying it is not healthy for you. It's not beneficial. It will not do you good in the long run. Instead, you have to see it, deal with it, address it, and progress. That requires, like Bruce said, courage to be able to act in the presence of fear, not just be subdued by the fear and not just to ignore it and live in la la land and think, oh, unicorns and fairies, just deny the fear and then everything will be lovely. Reality doesn't work that way. So you need courage to get from fear to love. Courage is the bridge from fear to love. It only takes little simple actions. It doesn't require you to go to the other side of the world, like, you know, during the war with Japan and go and attack people there to prove how courageous you are or to be courageous. It can be as simple as, like, the woman in the image, just being part of that counter narrative. Yeah, fear versus love versus fear. It shouldn't really be versus, but you know, it's just a convention of English language. It is the dualistic counter from one to the other. So anyway, I hope that's all made sense. I know it was a little bit divergent all over the place, but there has been quite a lot of stuff going on through this week.
And all made sense to me, Cookie. So
cool.
Well done.
I had that sort of tripping point as well of like, why have all the notifications stopped? So I'm glad Gary found that article, because that was just like, right, okay, cool, thank you. That makes easy sense.
Well, you mentioned the Belarus protests that have been going on.
Yeah.
Did you mention that? Yeah, you did mention that. And interestingly, images coming up from that. No one's wearing masks. They're all protesting against the president. And there's literally thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands, it looks like, out there, all peaceful. And I saw one video with the military police, if you like, lowering their shields and people hugging them on the steps of, I think the Parliament. Bit of a photo opportunity, but it's interesting to see that happen. No, everyone was shocked. They just lowered their shields, and everyone was going up to them and, shaking their hand and whatever. So
I was just saying that's interesting as well, because if the majority of them are not wearing masks, part of the propaganda narrative here is that Lukashenko is a crazy dictator because he won't believe in the crown virus. He won't go along with the WHO guidelines and whatever. So they've been painting him over here in the media propaganda about him as being this kind of crazy who doesn't believe in shit. Like Bolsonaro, incidentally, hasn't been mentioned for a while, but yeah. And then the people protesting against Lukashenko were majority not wearing masks. You see how that doesn't, that doesn't gel, does it? So why are they really there protesting? It's more about them being against Lukashenko and his policies and whatever, isn't it? It's not so much about COVID.
No, it's just how the country's being run, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just interesting to see that, because the news that we're covering at the time, I think it was on Saturday, over the weekend, everyone was sort of shocked at how this guy doesn't seem like he's got long left in office. It seems everyone wants him gone. So, but
I think they are trying to destabilize him like they do with Ukraine. They want to put in a puppet, because he's like so many that have been labelled as dictators in the past. And I'm not trying to defend them and say that they were right or anything, but classically, it's what the Anglo-American alliance does. Label them as a dictator, and then we intervade their country to bomb them into democracy.
Well, this looks more peaceful, thankfully. But the VJ Day, can't even say it. They remember the wars time, remember the wars. It's the war on you every day. It's a war on us. Said that forever. So that's how they, want to sort of keep you reminded of all the conflicts and keep you distracted from the other ones that are going on now, or ones that, it seems like wars have sort of stopped over this crisis, or there hasn't been much going on apart from Israel doing its usual stuff.
Terrorism has stopped completely.
Yeah.
Well, in the Western nations, I know there's been attacks in other countries, in Middle Eastern countries, but here in the West, the deadly threat of the Phantom Ninja ISIS exploding people, that seems to have just evaporated.
It just seems to have, but still, I mean, and you mentioned as well, before I forget, the Public Health England, I thought, the new one will be CC, COVID cops, will be released amongst us, and anyone can apply to be a COVID cop.
I know you're saying that as a bit of comedy, mate, but as well, you're right, you're spot on, because guaranteed it will be a third-party private company that fulfills that role.
Yeah.
So this was something that frustrated me, or was frustrating me, with that Shadowgate documentary. They very clearly describe it, but then they don't actually call it out as fascism. They talk about how there's this campaign against Trump that's being perpetrated by some people who work in government and some people who work in private industry, like the military-industrial complex. And they called it the shadow government. So what you are describing is fascism, or corporatism, as Mussolini said it should more accurately be described as corporatism, the merger of state and private business. But she didn't call it out as that, But what you're describing is the same thing. They're scrapping this PHE. They're just going to get another company in to fulfill that role. And again, what is the description of fascism? The merger of state and private business. And I started saying it earlier, and then I forgot to finish what I was fucking saying. I posted a comment under Anna Bree's video, and I was making the point about she made a comment about some of the people she knows who works in the medical industry, like doctors and stuff like that. They're not going to stand up and say anything until the government make the vaccines mandatory, because they consider that like their triggering key that means that, oh yes, it is a dictatorship now, so I better stand up and say something.
Wow.
And as we've been discussing for a while, yeah,
Mm.
the government doesn't need to make it mandatory. They don't need to make a big announcement on the news saying, right, from Monday morning at 8 a.m., everybody in the country is required to get a vaccine or else. They don't need to actually make it mandatory. Instead, they get that situation of the merger of state and private power, and they get the private sector to introduce it. So shops start asking, oh, you can't come in unless you're wearing a mask. So there is no governmental requirement to wear a mask. So why are you refusing me service? Oh, no, sir, sorry, the guidelines say that nobody can come in without a mask. So it's the private sector that enables and enforces the restrictions, the fascistic surveillance state. So the government can just sit back and see, folks, it wasn't us. We're your friends. We're here to help you. We are the government. We're here to help you. Yeah. Sorry, man, little rant there, but it's that point that
Corporate policy, innit?
yeah, they don't need the government to turn around and say, okay, from now on, there's going to be this legislation that says you must do blah, 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 blah. They just say to the private sector, it's like, well, we've been consulting with our experts, and they tell us that 99.9% of viruses don't like your tasty snacks. So you have to mandate your Scooby snacks for the viruses. And then the private sector will go, oh, well, you know, government's suggesting that we should do this, and their experts are suggesting that it would be a good idea. So let's implement it before they introduce a legislation, so we're ahead of the game and we beat our competitors. It's a business model problem, yeah? The private sector will always chase the profit motive. So if they're given a nudge that, oh, in the near future, the Dow is going to go to minus 17, you better sell, they'll start selling, yeah? Whether the government has mandated that they need to sell or not, they'll start doing it to keep that profit motive going. So if the government hints that in the near future they might require a biometric passport for you to go traveling, the corporations will start adjusting for that. And in effect, they will introduce the fascistic surveillance state system without any government fucking mandate.
Yeah, they just bring it in themselves, like you see with the buses and that, where in Wales it's not mandatory to wear masks on the buses and that, but the bus companies decided they would do it anyway.
Yeah.
So that's how they sidestep it, and everybody then has to, you know.
Part of it relies on them amplifying the fear in the public, so that the public request it. You know, it's classic Ikean problem reaction solution, but as we know, that's Hegelian dialectic manipulation and incrementalism. Yeah, so they put pressure psychologically on the public. They make the public terrified. They suggest they all wear masks so that they're constantly reminded of this terror of the unseen enemy. And then the public will start saying, well, why isn't something being done about this? You know, I want something to be done. And then the corporations want to look good to the public. So the corporations go, oh, well, yeah, okay, we'll do it for you. Yeah, providing for the customers' desires. Again, it's a business problem. Business is concerned with keeping the customer and keeping the profit motive going. So they'll do whatever they think the customer wants. So if the customer's terrified and wants to be feeling safe when they go in their shop, then they'll say, oh yeah, everybody's got to wear masks then, because that person there is afraid. So therefore everybody else in the shop has to cater for that person's fear. Sorry, again, I'm ranting.
Put a link in that ties in nicely with that, what you've just been saying, actually, in our side chat.
Okay.
Small businesses are dying by the thousands, and no one is tracking the carnage.
They've been systematically killed off, ready for the Great Reset.
Yeah.
If I remember, I'll show another picture as well, which I think Dr. Rock put in the pictures folder. No, fuck off. I don't want your fucking adverts. I don't want your fucking notifications. You fucking... What is this? A Bloomberg fucking piece of shit.
Yeah, it's Bloomberg, yeah. They got a nice graph at bottom. It's colourful.
Business busts. Restaurant industries leading the way in the number of going defunct, going out of business.
What does that say, miscellaneous? Does that say on 28?
Yeah.
I have looked twice at it.
Let me find that image that was shared. Actually, let's start with that one because that's a good one to start with. Yeah. For a long time, people have talked about how Big Brother is coming, and I've talked about this kind of stuff for a long time. And now we are at that point. Like you said, the COVID cops.
Yeah.
They will be private security companies. This is already starting to happen. And the test and trace stuff is the stage when it will become the biometric ID that you have to have on you all the time before you can go anywhere, go in any shop, do any business. You will have to have this biometric ID to say you've been tested or you've been checked to make sure you're safe, you're allowed, you have a license to be free.
And checking premises as well and all this stuff.
Yeah. And
making
premises
sure...
being licensed, it will end up becoming another license requirement.
Yeah. You have to follow these regulations. These are now mandatory in the...
That was the one I was thinking of. This is from the World Economic Forum, which you can go and check out for yourself, folks, if you haven't looked at it. There's just a wealth of stuff for you to work your way through if you're interested enough to look through the evidence, the data, their own paper trail, that they are not denying this shit. This is, again, conspiracies confirmed. They are no longer conspiracy theories. They are conspiracy fact. And it is a conspiracy. I know for many people, they've spent most of their lives, if not all their life, depending on how old they are, being indoctrinated with this idea that whenever you hear the word conspiracy, you automatically think of a tinfoil hat crazy weirdo. Like Mel Gibson in Conspiracy Theory, which if you actually watch it,
that's a good film.
There's just so much in there that he's truth. Yeah, but then it's fantasized and whatever into the...
And that's what, 20 years ago, isn't it? That was out 20 years ago,
late
more.
90s, I think it was 98 or something. Yeah. But I know for a lot of people, they just have that... It's indoctrinated into us, for all of us. It's like the way they manipulated the word anarchy, so that now if you say anarchy to 99% of... Maybe that's a bit of an overestimate. Certainly 90% of people, you say anarchy to them and they just get an image of like the protesters that have been ransacking in America and claiming reparations, basically just rioting and looting. Yeah. I want reparations for my people. Yeah. Let's go back to Magna Carta when they come in and stole the entire country from my ancestors. I want reparations for that, which is going to amount to a pretty big amount. Yeah.
And return our lands and deeds back to us that they stole off us all them years back.
I think reparations is an idiotic idea. Anyway, that's a different discussion.
Yes, but that's what they did. Yeah, I mean, that's how they it disempowered us and turned us into this.
Disenfranchised us. They were the usurpers.
We
came in and replaced physical reality with a paper-based pseudo-reality of dead entities.
Yeah.
Anyway, World Economic Forum. As I say, you want to spend the time and go and have a look. You will find the amassed data, the evidence that this is not a theory. These are conspiracies that have been taking place for a long time, because this stuff doesn't get written down overnight. They've had plans working away in the background towards this situation for a long time. We can have a semantic argument about whether they intended the crown virus situation to happen purposefully, or whether they've just had it sat on a shelf to take advantage of when the situation arose.
Yes. Well,
Possibly, but that still doesn't remove the fact that what is happening is happening. Yeah.
well, I would
So-
like to. Well, if I could switch what he's saying there just slightly to the positive, if you can switch that to the positive, but you can, because you can reset yourself and wake yourself up as you. Yeah, they want to change this reality, this external shit, but we need to be doing the work on ourselves inwardly. Now, this is the window of opportunity. It's very narrow, but if you're not on that, start doing stuff like that. Start looking into yourself and stuff, and start realizing who you are, and reset yourself, because we've had our heads filled with nonsense and lies and bullshit forever. So this is the time. The energy's good as well at the time as well. So everything's in our favor to bring all this down as well, and bring it all, bring this bloody pedo shit right to the, surface, and reveal it all for what it really is. And people will then, we can move forward and deal with all this other crap, because that's what's holding it all together, it seems. All these wicked, dark bastards. And this guy here who's, wanting to manipulate further and take us down the road of dystopian shithole, whatever, and control. So yeah, I'm ranting now. Sorry, I'll stop swearing.
Have you seen you
triggers?
mentioned
Yeah, go on.
the word, Peter. Have you seen the new one about the LOL dolls?
Yeah, the dolls. Yeah, we mentioned it. Yeah, I mean, this is where it goes. You see, this is how.
Another set.
Yeah.
It's the little tiny dolls. These that
Right.
you dip in water.
Okay.
I've just been trying to find. Yeah, I've just been trying to find the video of it, and Australian woman doing it, dipping it in. There's all sorts of messages coming up on bandages, underwear going see-through, stupid things like that.
Stuck into suspenders.
Yeah.
We've talked about this, how they take things, especially the children, and try and sexualize them at such a young age, and it's, yeah. And when you see, people know this, they see this now, they can see what we've created the last 2 decades, in a sense of like where we are, and now it's time for people to rise up now, realize it, and don't put up with this crap anymore. This nonsense they're trying to, push on us, and turn, even normalizing pedophilia. If you watch some of the recent movies that are out, you'll see little sections in the films that actually normalize and make a joke pedophilia and stuff like this. And it's subtle, but it's there. And when people watch this shit, in Netflix and all these movies, streaming sites and whatever, they're putting all this kind of crap out there to normalize this and get it like it's, something that's it's okay. It fucking isn't. And this is the problem. These dark bastards are doing their best, if you like, to, keep people daft and stupid, that, it doesn't exist. And like you said, Cookie, before, you have to shine your light in very dark places, and these are the places that they hide. And when the light goes on them, you'll see them scatter, and then they'll see them revealed, and then they'll do whatever they need to do, which is hopefully top themselves or something like
that. The root of their power base is founded on the darkest, nastiest things that they are willing to do. So if you're not prepared to at least acknowledge those things exist, or that they're being done by these people, then you're never ever going to be able to deal with the problems that stem from that root, because you're not addressing the root of the problem.
And by understanding yourself, you'll see your spiritual nature come through, and you'll understand what they're actually doing, because you'll understand how they work this. You'll get more clarity. More clarity in your thinking. You'll evolve. You'll fire up the neurons that have been dead in your head because they've kept them dead, And when you start to expand it, that's what they're scared of. And it's coming anyway, because the sun, our sun, the sun in the sky and all that good stuff is, it changes things. It has power, and we'll wake up, and people are waking up, if you like. They say that term, wake up, but
let me just go on this at that point, because again, I don't find this to be just coincidence. These are timings that are synchronistically connected. But like, I put the comment up from Stewie about the doctors being silent. I agree with you. I've made this point a few times recently. But just on that kind of light shining that's coming at the moment, and the overtopping of the dam that I was kind of trying to use a metaphor to describe. There's going to be another group get-together protest, to call it a protest, that involves Dr. Adil, which was one of the ones, one of the doctors that has spoken out. We spoke about him a while ago, and Aid Hardy had him on his channel, interviewed him, other people interviewed him, and subsequently he got himself struck off. Well, I say he got himself, the medical council decided to strike him off because he was saying naughty things.
Telling the truth.
But there is more meetings and protests coming up. And there are some doctors like him that are going to turn up at those protests and are speaking out about it. And last night I caught one of the uploads from, is his name Callum? I think, you're Computing Forever. I can't remember the guy's name now, sorry, but he was chatting with Professor Cowhill, the woman professor from Ireland.
Oh, yeah.
The way the numbers have been manipulated and the data being manipulated, all this kind of stuff. And again, he's another channel that gets quite a lot of views. He gets quite a lot of people watching his content. So the information is reaching further and further. And I think we are really hitting that critical mass point. The 100 monkey point is starting to happen, which is why we're starting to see people who've never been interested or just did flatly refuse to look. They were like, no, you're just talking craziness. Now those people are starting to go, well, okay, hang on, show me the evidence. What are you referring to? I better check it for myself, kind of reaction, rather than just a blank denial. You
can look at it another way as well. Well, the people that are finding it and then they're bleeding their heart out on Facebook and that.
Yeah.
They're getting ripped. They're getting ripped apart. So they feel small. Because on Facebook, it's full of children. I've come to that fucking decision.
Yeah, mental children,
Yeah, because it's all you get off them is childish emojis when they don't understand what you're trying to say, or it just doesn't comprehend with them full stop. Even when you put in MSN with it to back up what you said years ago, and they just laugh. Think you're a frigging tinfoil hat. That's another one as well. When they keep saying that, it'd be all right if you really understood the true meaning of a tinfoil hat.
Yeah,
it's a stereotype.
And you bother to learn about the technology that you're describing when you use that metaphor, and why what you're using the metaphor as is completely inverted, and you're talking out your fucking ass.
Yeah.
If anyone's a tinfoil hatter, it's you.
Well, I put the definition of tinfoil hat underneath, and you don't get a reply.
But I want to just put that extra point in there as well, as that like this is constantly the divide and conquer that they try to get us into. Yeah. It's like the tinfoil hat people versus the normies or the sheep or whatever you want to call them, And that's that bridge. We need to get on that bridge, moving on that bridge before we start beating each other, because they would rather that we hate on each other because of things like this. Just look at all the stupid people in their pen, in their cattle pen. They are mental children, because they're willing to go along with something so abnormal just so that they can get a taste of something sweet that they knew when they were younger. It's like when you introduce kids to sugar, to candy, to chocolate and stuff like that, kids become obsessed with it. Yeah, you see this all the time. It's like parents bribing children with promises of chocolate. And so if you be behaved, you'll get a chocolate bar. Yeah? But it's the same kind of thing. They just want to reconnect to something that they enjoyed, that they used to do, that they considered normal. But the system is now forcing them to accept this manipulation and normalize what is abnormal. And it's completely contrary to any reason or logical argument or evidence available. Doing that is not going to make any fuck all difference to the virus, if there is a virus.
Have you noticed they're bringing back all the major control aspects first as well? Football, concerts. You know what I mean? Concerts.
Yeah.
Concerts are never going to be the same, are they? You go to concerts, but meet, greet, share people's happiness. You can't do that at 60 yards apart.
Yeah. One of the regular commenters, a rebel, put some comments, I think it was under last week's episode, or might have been the one before, mentioning that about how, notice how the football matches are starting up again now, and they're making a point in the media about all the fans getting together and hugging and doing what they normally do, yeah? It's like, oh, naughty, second wave.
Mm. They've thrown everything in, haven't they? They're burning churches, they've tried the black card.
Yeah.
They've tried everything for unrest. I think a second wave will push it.
That's the best one. Sorry, I was laughing at that one before.
I put that in Sky.
It's a little bit like the human centipede as well.
That's a cracker, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that to me was what a concert was about.
Yeah.
Not that shit. That's
Not
not a concert. That's not going to a concert or a festival. That is. That reminds me of the one year I went to Donington. That was like that. It was just rammed. It was ram-packed. But yeah.
There'll be security guards chasing people around who escape from the pen, who have maybe a few too many drinks and get a bit carried away. So there'll be all that going on maybe. Yeah. It might be hard to actually, police people staying in that area. You'll get groups form. You'll get big, outside the pens. You got to. People aren't going to stay in that.
Yeah. Or you'll get more. I mean, I'm looking at this from the point of view of a musician. I mean, I'm quite happy to call myself a musician, but I don't earn money from it. I'm not signed to any labels. I'm not interested in the music business or any of that shit. But I like playing instruments. I like music. I appreciate it. I enjoy listening to people play. Maybe we'll get more of that. There'll be more sort of little get-togethers, mini gigs that people will be sneaking off to, like the underground kind of speaking clubs. Yeah. That's already been happening. The speakeasy private drinking get-togethers, that's been happening all through the lockdown, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
So we'll probably see the same with get-togethers of people playing music, yeah? You can play piano, you can play guitar, let's get together and we'll have a few mates around, have a few drinks, play some tunes, have a sing-song. It sounds like we're back in the wartime propaganda stuff again, yeah? We'll meet again, or we'll get to see each other's faces again. Yeah, can you see your face? Yeah, I thought that was quite appropriate that the woman had put on that sign I was showing earlier. Yeah, and she put on there, yeah, will we see your face again?
Yeah, that was from the song, wasn't it? That lyric from the Verve. Right? Yeah.
But just to get to wrapping it up, I mean, we've got a few minutes left, but. The switch over of the cash and the banks. I noticed that news article as well, and how far they're going to rush that, because Australia has been ahead of the curve, but it's the dictatorial surveillance state curve, unfortunately. So yeah, I think they may be ahead of the curve on a lot of this stuff.
Well, let's just hope people in Australia are on this and they're waking up and they push back and they do the things that need to be done, because they are really hammering it out there. Like you said, that has been. I'm not sure about New Zealand as well. I think those two countries get absolutely fucked, basically.
You're reading my mind, you. That's what I was just going to say quickly about that one. New Zealand. FEMA. It really is FEMA roundup there.
Quarantine.
Yeah, anybody that's got it, they're snatching them and putting them in isolation.
Yep. And you think of a potential way that can be abused, the supposed authority. And as we talked about earlier and have done before, a lot of the services will be provided by private security companies, or certainly private companies, whether they're security or not. They will make use of the ability now to make you have a test, and they have mentioned about making the tests mandatory. which is, again, leading it into that private sector enabling setup. But they will test you. They will find coronavirus because 99.99999% of us have had cold or flu or some point in our life, which means we have coronavirus in our bodies. And the tests they are primarily using for these so-called diagnostic tests is the PCR test, which the creator said should not be used as a diagnostic, but for some reason they are, and they're just ignoring any question about that.
Yeah.
But that process, that testing process, basically amplifies the content until it finds coronavirus. And because, as I say, we've all had coronavirus in us at some point, then that's pretty much a guarantee that they will find coronavirus in anyone that's tested. Once they've got that test confirmation, you can then be sent off to a quarantine camp. Do you not see what the fuck is happening here, folks?
And
This
winter
is just
time
like,
coming. Winter coming.
that is so blatantly in your face. What other do you want to see people being shot in the head in the middle of the street before you'll believe that this is a fascistic dictatorship happening?
This is why I think they've pushed this so hard as well, because if you think about it, the martial law come in, there was a survey done on our squaddies, and 90-odd% of them said they wouldn't shoot.
Yeah.
Now, putting a virus in their heads now, they'll think, oh, run it, shoot, they could kill my friends, they could kill my family.
They could infect the whole town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got it now droned into these little computer geeks, which most of them are now, that's played games all their life. They've got rid of all the old ones, kept a few for training.
Mm-hmm. That's another worthwhile connection as well, to again recommend watching that Shadowgate documentary, because that clearly demonstrates for people, if you haven't caught up or if you haven't been keeping an eye on a lot of this stuff to do with the way the technology is being used by the surveillance state, then it's a good encapsulation to help you catch up on a lot of that, because again, that demonstrates how they can manipulate people very directly on an individual level from a control room, where in effect it's almost gamified to the way they interact with it. So on the documentary, they're talking to this guy who's a vet. I don't know what places he'd served in or whatever, but he was a PsyOps engineer. He designed the technology and the software and stuff like that for carrying out various surveillance and psychological operations and stuff. And he's talking about how the new system that they're using and have been using for a while is able to capture that kind of data and then use it via analytics to identify how to manipulate people, and then recommend those methods to the end user, i.e. the agent who's sitting there going, oh, we need somebody to do this kind of thing in this area. Like, we need a bunch of people to turn up at a protest who are highly likely to get violent. How do we find those people? The surveillance software would analyze people's social media and go, these people on this list here, these are the kind of people that will likely resort to violence if you put them in that situation. Lo and behold, they create a movement that tries to draw people in to attract them to that place, and boom, you've got a violent riot. This stuff has been implemented for quite a while, folks, certainly since before the last American election, because I'm certain that they were utilizing it leading up to that 2016 election to get
I was going to say that's how you get a president as well.
Because remember, we talked about it, all this kind of stuff at the time, because of the way the conspiracy genre was co-opted into supporting Trump, and then we had the emergence of the QAnon bullshit and all that kind of stuff, and it's still ongoing. This is them using surveillance technology to manipulate people, both en masse in large groups, even on a societal level, but also right down to the individual level. They can take it all the way down and look at, well, what is this guy interested in? What is he shouting about what are his fears and his desires and how can we manipulate him
through social media and the internet.
through that device.
Yeah.
If you think about it, all the years with Facebook and all social media, we've given the in-feed to train an IA.
I mentioned I have talked about that kind of stuff over the years, going back quite a few years now, mentioning the Google Brain project, which was started more than a decade ago, probably 15 years or more ago. And part of that was when they brought in, what's that stupid game called? Pokemon. Yeah. Remember that Pokemon Go thing where people were running around out in the streets, and on their device they would see the game creature, augmented reality. To them it looked like it's in the world that they're looking at through the device. But one thing I pointed out then was there's places in the world that Google Map couldn't get to. So they started this system where they were getting people to upload themselves, and they were using people's uploads to do the mapping in between the areas where the vehicles couldn't get to. And then there were actually private companies that started up doing literally exactly that. They would have a pedestrian version of Google Map. And people were paid to walk around areas, like through the middle of a park where there's only pathways and no roads, obviously, yeah? So they'd walk through the park with a stick with the Google mapping device on it, and they'd just walk around doing the mapping, yeah? But Pokemon was the same kind of thing. And it demonstrated how, when you're walking down the road doing your selfie video, doing your duck face, going, oh yeah, I'm just going down to the Costa Coffees to get me a box of fucking Slurpee shit. The software, the cloud-based are mapping all the stuff that's in your environment. They know where you are, they know what's around you, they can pick up all the other devices that are around you.
Yeah.
This has been building for a while now, folks, and it has more than passed the Rubicon. It's long past the Rubicon. We're at the point where it's nearly fully emanated now into physical reality, because we've got to the stage like it's happening in Victoria, in Australia, in Melbourne and Queensland and other places, and New Zealand in particular, where if you can't see that being just such a warning sign, then you are going to be waiting until the train hits you in the face before you go, oh, well, maybe I better get off the tracks.
Anything I've mirrored from New Zealand or Australia, it's lasted an hour and a half on YouTube, and then I've had 7 videos taken down in a week. One a day.
I know this. I'm trying to point out the sort of beneficial, the silver cloud effect again, the silver lining in the clouds effect. But again, the more they crack down on places like this, the more the natural law will cause the sprouting and emanation of other stuff elsewhere. In the last, probably, I'd say at least 2 years, but it goes back a bit further for some of the other platforms that sort of emerged and tried to get going. But for certainly the last couple of years, the number of new platforms and new ways of doing similar to what we're doing now, content sharing, video sharing, articles and chat rooms and stuff like that, it's spreading all over the place. Yeah, the more they've been cracking down and controlling the major platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all these major platforms are being compressed into a dictatorial regime, and all the people are popping out the sides of the box, and they're growing in other directions. And we've seen multiple alternative platforms start up now. You got BitChute, Steemit, brand new Tube, Our Tube.
Brand new Tube? I've not heard of that.
Brand new Tube. It's another one similar to, you get an interface that's similar to YouTube, but it's another new independent one. Well, I say independent. I don't know about their funding or whatever.
AltTube, I've won that one.
Yeah. There's other
YouTube,
versions as well, like Library and Minds and MeWe and Parler, you know, as a counter to Twitter.
that Parler as well.
Yeah, there's multiple other platforms emerging. And I'm not trying to say that it's sort of like, that's it, fight over, the new platforms will take over, because the system will try and counter them, it will try and suppress them, it will create limited hangouts to draw people off and then shut it down and whatever to stop that area and stuff. Yes, they will. That's what they do. That's what they always do. But what I'm trying to point at here is that ongoing reality, as like Morpheus said in the Matrix, they've been trying to get rid of us for millennia and we're still here. Yeah, that should give you confidence and empowerment. Yeah, they've been trying to shut down a lot of this information for thousands of years, but we're still here and we're still talking about it.
We are in control. That's just, we need to wake up to the fact that we rule the planet and not them.
Yeah. Yeah. They only rule by our acquiescence.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to in the long run. Whoever claims that they're in power, whether they be elected, selected, or whether they be a supposed divine right to rule by blood bullshit artist, that all of them only rule via our acquiescence because we let them.
Yeah. And work on ruling yourself as well. If you rule yourself and do that work on yourself and you know who you are, then we all can just get on with it, you know. Yeah. And that's that's what they don't want.
Yeah.
So
and they don't
keep
want
at it.
seeing that as a possibility. They want you to constantly think that you'll never be able to do it without them. You can't survive without them. They're the only ones that can do it for you. And I'm not, you know, I know for some people at the moment, they'll label it as the far left political spectrum bullshit, but there is that narrative out there that's being pushed at the moment that you should do things like defund the police, defund the government and whatever else. I'm not talking about that kind of shit, because there are certain roles and elements and parts of the infrastructure of how our society works and how we share the world with each other that are still beneficial to us. So having peacekeepers is a beneficial thing, because at some point you will encounter people that have a propensity to violence or theft or fraud or whatever. So it's good to have a group that we can call peacekeepers that help deal with those problems. But we are all the peacekeepers, yeah? Some functionalities are good for us to carry on with. It's just we need to get rid of their decentralized claim of power and control over all this stuff. This society doesn't belong to them. They didn't build it. I'm sorry, Obama, but you didn't build it. The people built all this. The people operate all this machinery of society. So it is the people who rule this world, not those individuals that claim some kind of authority for whatever bullshit justification.
Yep.
I've got a couple of light-hearted things to finish off if you want.
Yeah. And finally.
Go on.
Revenge one for you. What a farmer in Wigan, this one. I'll show screens on it.
Or has he been spraying some fertilizer by any chance?
No. It's much better than that one, actually. Caught a fly tipper in Wigan. I've got it on screenshot, though. Photographs are much better than me explaining it.
Yeah, delivery for you, mate.
That's him tipping them out. Got caught on CCTV. That's the result of the farmer returning. But he had a few extra. That's a farmer, though.
Cool.
And the other one is one that will put a big smile on a lot of people's faces. Which I'm on split screen again, so I'm back from the own head. Speed camera van. In somebody's garden.
How did it end up there?
Apparently he's
was he going
collided.
too fast?
He must have been. He's collided with another car on today. Actually, it were this morning,
Yeah.
and he's ended up in somebody's front garden.
Yeah, he must have been doing a bit of a speed, because to get all the way across that verge and pavement and then through the bushes, that's not a 20 mile an hour, 30 mile an hour speed.
No.
Not unless he had cramp in his leg and he stomped on the accelerator as he was bouncing up the curb.
I've just got a message off Taz, something about some message links before I go.
Right, okay, let me check mine as well in case I've just not seen it because I haven't been looking.
Have you got them? Yeah, have you found them?
I've got one that Dr. Rock sent through. Hang on, let me show this one. Because that's quite good wartime manipulation, more wartime propaganda manipulation. See, they're trying to appropriate the narrative again. We'll meet again. The more we follow the rules, the sooner we'll be reunited. Inversion, complete inversion.
I've just completely misread a message. Which means to the ones I've just shared.
Oh, right, yeah. Hang on, let me just check again if there's anything else on mine.
I'll put them in Skype for you now, Taz.
That one, yeah, I want to share that. I'll leave it at this one because then we're, knocking on the hour. And I like to try and stick within the 2 hours so that I'm not testing people's patience and they're not getting bored and everybody's got something else to do. And 2 hours is enough for a monologue, preaching, lecture. I think for us doing this kind of stuff. If the masks work, then why are we social distancing?
Exactly.
Good question.
And why are we making them ourselves?
If social distancing works, then why are we wearing masks? If masks and social distancing work, then why are our businesses closed? If we can stand in line at the grocery store, then why can't we stand in line to vote? Because it's not about the virus, it never was. Well, there's an interesting insertion of the voting election bullshit in America there. It's a bit of appropriation of the narrative.
Yes.
I'd scrub that fourth point personally and just leave that out completely. Just not because it's not logical, but because it's obviously deliberately a political propaganda manipulation. You got these bits, the first three, to get your attention and make you think it's all good stuff because it's bang on and it's the truth and it's accurate, and then they give you the fucking political poison.
The turd in the punch bowl.
Yeah. Swill that punch bowl out. Or, like the terrain theory, do you vaccinate the turd or do you clean the bowl? Sentiment-wise, I'm in agreement with that. So there were just some simple logical observations and questions that reveal the inconsistencies and therefore the bullshit of this whole situation. And some of them are things like, well, if masks work, why do you need to be 6 foot away? If 6 foot away works, why do we need to wear the masks? Yeah, and on it goes.
It's strange how your aura's 6 foot around you as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think for the majority of us, it's strongest up to around 6 feet, and then it starts to fade out. But that's as well in the environment we're in. It can be a lot less than that if you're surrounded by loads of electrically produced magnetic fields, artificially produced magnetic fields. Your own personal field will get squished. Why do you feel irritated all the time? Maybe it's because of all that Wi-Fi EMF that's surrounding you constantly and agitating you. And at the same time, you've got all those notifications going ping, 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 ping. And you've got all those people on Facebook saying, validate me, please validate me, validate. Yeah, why are you getting agitated? I wonder why. Maybe take a break from all that shit. Get out in nature, even if it's to go to a protest somewhere. It's sort of nature, the urban nature of an inner city, maybe, but nature is people as well. You're not separate from that. We are not existing in a vacuum. There's no such thing as a true vacuum in nature, I don't think. In a lab, maybe, but not in nature. They want us to feel that we're in a vacuum, that we're separated, that by putting a piece of fucking cloth over our face, we can somehow separate ourselves from all of this. It doesn't work that way. Get out into nature, get some sunshine. If you can. I know not everybody can do that, but if you can, do it. Leave it at that. Thanks for joining in, guys.
Cheers, Cookie.
Thanks
you.
to Gary. I promise next week I'm going to give Gary the first part of the show, whatever. And so, you know, if there's anything you want to bring up, mate, because I know the last couple of weeks I've been talking incessantly, having to log out before he's had a chance to say anything. So I will do that next week. And thanks again for joining in, Gary. See, it's doing it again already. Bug off with your notifications. I've seen them. Stop it. Anyway, hello to everyone in the chat room. Sorry I haven't been in and gone through the chat room, but I know the usual suspects in there are keeping good order. And I can see there's been lots of chat. Let me know. Cool.
Loads.
I will get round to reading through it at some point, either later this evening or tomorrow. If I'm a bit slow on responding to comments, and sometimes, you know, it takes me a day or two to get to it, and I try to reply to every comment. I don't always. If you post something abusive or snotty or arsey, I won't reply to you. So don't think you're going to drag me into some kind of pathetic argument. I try and at least say hello and thank you to everyone that posts a comment. So thanks for joining in the chat. And thanks for everyone for getting involved. Thanks for Tazzy as well, for you always sharing the links in there. Thank you. And a big shout out to Big T. I hope you're feeling well, mate. I know you were having a few drinks and you were feeling a bit appreciative last week. So thanks, mate, for everything you've been saying and doing. Thanks for doing the images that I've been using the last few weeks for the thumbnail. Good stuff, friend. Right, okay. I didn't even click like on my own video. That's how humble I am, honest. Yeah. Anyway, yes, thanks again, folks. See you again soon. We'll be back on Wednesday night with the reality chat. Steve Tagoose will be on Thursday night with the mystery show, both at 8 p.m. GMT, same as us, 8 p.m. GMT. And I should be back next week. We'll see you again soon. Enjoy the sunshine if you can get it in between the rain.
Cheers, Cookie, again. And,
Cheers, Cookie.
and all.